Assalamu alaikum. Today we will discuss some more topics of cryptography. In this lecture, we will discuss hash functions, cryptographic algorithms, public key cryptography, digital signature, and steganography. So start with the hash functions. Hash functions are mathematical algorithms which produce message summary, or we can say message fingerprint or message digest, which is used to confirm the source of the message, as well as it is used to confirm that there is no unauthorized modification in the message while message transfer from source to destination. As per Kirchhoff's principle, we know that our algorithms are never secret. So hash algorithms are also publicly known function, and these functions are used to create hash values. And hash value is also called the message digest or message fingerprint or message summary. In hash function, there is no need to use keys by itself. Hash functions does not require any key. But when we are using hash functions to generate message authentication code, then we will need to use a key to create that MAC. And which key is used? Symmetric encryption keys are used for calculating and verification of MACs. The application of hash functions is password verification system to confirm the identity of user. And also we can use hash function for calculation of MAC. So these are two most widely used application of hash function. Now, what is cryptographic hash function? Cryptographic hash function have some properties which are different from normal hash functions. First thing, cryptographic hash functions can take a variable length message, any length message, arbitrary length message, and compute on that message a fixed length short string. Like you can give as input to hash function a message of 1 byte or 1 kilobyte or 1 megabyte as input. It will generate a fixed length hash of that message. Like if we are using some particular algorithm which generate hash string of 160 bit or 120 bit, so input can be 1 byte or 1 kilobyte or 1 megabyte, but output of hash function will be a fixed length like 120 bit or 160 bit, whatever, depends on which cryptographic hash function you use to compute the hash. We have certain properties that need to be fulfilled by any hash function to categorize as a cryptographic hash function. Not every hash function is a cryptographic hash function. In order to qualify that, okay, this hash function is a cryptographic hash function, it has to satisfy certain properties. Now, what are those properties? First property is, okay, we are calling here a message as m and the hash of message as a function h of m. So m is your original message and h of m is the hash on message m. First property is that for any length m, for any message m, it should be easy to compute its hash. For any message m, the computation of hash should be efficient and easy. Second property is, if you have the hash of a message, then there is no way to find m that hashes to h of m in a way that is substantially easier than going through all possible values of n and computing h of m for each one. Now this property is, second property is also called one-way property. One way. These cryptographic hash functions are also called one-way hash function. Now what is this one-way property? It said that if you have a hash of m, you would not be able to get m back out of it unless you try all possible m values and compute h of m and then compare it with the given h of m. Okay, so like encryption algorithm, cryptographic encryption algorithm, there is always encryption and then decryption. You have a message, you can get encrypted text out of it. You give encrypted text as output to decryption algorithm, you got message M back. But in case of hash, there is no reverse. From M, you can calculate H of M, but if you have H of M, it should be computationally very difficult to find M out of it or original message out of it. Third property is it is computationally infeasible to find two values that hash to the same thing. Like you have been given this freedom that okay, you go and bring any two message that map to the same hash, and you should not be able to find it in a computationally reasonable amount of time. So it should be computationally infeasible. When we say computationally infeasible, it doesn't mean that it is impossible. It is possible, but might it takes hundred of years to do so. But with the current computational power, in a reasonable amount of time, you would not be able to find two messages that generate the same hash. Or we can say it like this. If we have M1 which is not equals, okay, if I have M1 and M2 where M1 is not equals to M2, then we should not be able to find H of M, H of M equal M1, H of M1 would never be equal to H of M2. If we have two messages M1 and M2 where M1 is not equals to M2, then H of M1 will also be not equals to H of M2. Okay, or we can say that if H of M1 is equals to H of M2, it means that M1 is equals to M2. M1 and M2 both are same messages. Then hash of these two messages will be equal. Otherwise, you would not be able to find out two different messages with same hash. I mean, it should be computationally infeasible. Okay, hash function security uses or application. As I told you, we use hash function to calculate message authentication code, and hash functions are also used for password hashing. Your password in the system is never stored clear. Like if you enter your password, your system need to store that password somewhere in the memory so that later on when you come back you should be able to send the or give the same password, and system compare with the password that user enter with the store password to verify that this user is a authentic user. System will not store your password in a clear. System store the hash of the password. Why? Because if system store password as a clear, somebody can steal that password file and can come to know about the password of all the users on that system or on that network. Either on the network or in a one system, passwords are never stored in clear. Passwords are stored as hashes of the password, not password but hash of the password. So when user enter password, system calculate its hash and compare it with the stored hash. Like here a user come and user enter password, like this is the password of user. User enter this password. Now how will system work, system will calculate the hash of the user enter password and compare it with the stored hash value in the database like this. And if both are same, then user has been authenticated. So whenever a password is given by a user, system compute its hash and compare it with the stored value. If both hashes are same, calculated hash and stored hash both are same, the user is considered to be an authenticated user. Okay, we will discuss more about it in the next chapter when we will study user authentication. Next application of hash is message integrity. So we use cryptographic hash functions to generate message authentication code. Now the process is over here. We have two users, Alice and Bob. Alice is the sender and Bob is the receiver. So Alice send the message. When a message is generated by Alice, the first thing she has to do is that it has to calculate hash of the message. So in order to calculate hash of the message for Mac, particularly Mac, for Mac we need a secret or key. So message is appended with the secret or key, and then this message is given as input to hash function, and then hash function calculate the hash of the message and send to the Bob along with message M. So what happened on the Bob's end, or when Bob received this message? When Bob received this message, Bob will calculate the hash of the message and compare this calculated hash with the use of same secret key. Okay, here it is not visible. Secret key is not visible here. To this hash function, it is over there, but it is. To this hash function, we give secret key also as an input and then compare the calculated hash with the received hash. If both hashes are same, message has been authenticated. So we have two basic applications of cryptographic hash functions. One is for password storing in the system. System always store the hash of the password. Password is never stored in clear. And for message authentication code, hash functions are used. But the difference from password hashing to message authentication code is that when we are calculating message authentication code, then in order to calculate hash, we not only provide original message but also secret or key to it. Okay, message fingerprinting. Message fingerprinting is like it is used for finding out any tamper in the message later on. If somebody tampering the message later on, you can find out by comparing the tampered message hash with the stored hash, and it can easily be found out that message is tampered. So message fingerprints are used for that purpose. We save the message digest of the data on a tamper-proof backing store. Message digest mean hash of the data. We store not only the data, not only the message, but also with each message we store hash of that message, and then periodically recompute the digest of the data to ensure it is not changed. If you are storing some files on your hard disk, you know virus scanner, how virus scanner scan your file's integrity. You know, virus when infect a file, it attach its code in the file. When a virus attach its code to the file, file is changed, file is not same as before. So message fingerprinting can be used for virus scanner. Like you have a file F1, all the files in your system, file F1 when stored on the system, F1 is stored along with F1 hash of f1 will be stored. And same is true for all the files on system like f1 to fn. All the files that we have on a system, the file along with hash of it is stored. Let's suppose now virus infect f1. When virus infect f1, f1 has changed to f1 dash. f1 is not same as previous because virus add its code with f1. So f1 will change to f1 dash, and when we calculate the hash of f1 dash, because it recompute hashes and compare it with the stored hashes to find out if there is any tampering or change in the file. So when system recompute h of f1 dash and compare it with the stored hash, both hash would not be same, and system will find out that f1 is a infected file or is a tampered file. Download security. We can also use a hash function to ensure a download program is not modified, because when you are downloading a program, while downloading a program, they also provide you with the hash of that program. Okay, when you are downloading any software from some website give you download link for that file and hash of that executable program. Then once you finish downloading your program, you can calculate the hash and compare it with the hash provided with it to find out that download program is not modified while downloading, because sometimes these hackers change this download program in such a way that when you are downloading one program, it is not only downloading that, but along with it, it is downloading some malware with it. So this can also be confirmed. Improving signature efficiency. Another application of hash function, it is used to compute digital signatures. So we will discuss it when we will study digital signature in the coming slides. Cryptographic algorithms can be grouped into two broad categories: symmetric and asymmetric algorithm. How can we distinguish between symmetric and asymmetric algorithm? We distinguish them by based on the type of the key that is used for encryption and decryption operation. You are already familiar with it, that symmetric encryption uses same secret key to encrypt and decrypt message. So when a same key is used for encryption as well as decryption, then the algorithm is called symmetric algorithm. And another property for symmetric algorithm is that they are very fast, efficient, and require minimal computational or processing power. Both sender and receiver need to have a same key, because same key is used for encryption and decryption. So if either one of the key is compromised, the person who is recording your message or intermediate attacker can decrypt and read message if either of the key is compromised, or if either of key is known by the attacker, because we are using same key for encryption as well as decryption. We already studied that DES is one of the most popular symmetric encryption algorithm and its property. Then we have triple dash, and then we have AES that we already discussed in previous lecture. In this lecture, we will emphasize on asymmetric encryption algorithm or public key encryption algorithm. Now, public key encryption algorithm will use two different but related keys. Like one key is used for encryption and the other related key is used for decryption. Both keys are different, but they have a mathematical relationship between each other. If key A encrypt a message, then the other related key B will be used to decrypt the message. So one key is called a private key and other key is called a public key. So in public key encryption algorithm, we use two different keys. One key is called private key and other key is called public key. As name suggest, private key is only need to known by the owner of the key, but public keys are public, so you can give public key to anyone. Either you can uh, publish it on your server, okay, publicly. You can send your public key through email to your friends. You can publish it on web server, or you can print it on your business card. There is no need to keep it secret. Only thing that you need to keep secret is private key when we are talking about public key encryption algorithm. Okay, we know that security of encryption algorithm depends on the key, and if key size is more, the system is considered to be more secure. So here, I think we already discussed such thing before in symmetric encryption slides, but here there is another example. Like if we have 8-bit key, then total number of possible keys for 8-bit key is 2 raised to the power 8, which is 256 total possible keys. And if we have a compiler, if we have a computer, which can perform 8 million computation per second, then to break 256 possible keys or 8-bit key, it only take maybe some microseconds. If we have 16-bit key, we have total possible number of keys 2 raised to the power 16, and to break that key it will take again few milliseconds. And if we have 24-bit key, then total possible number of keys will be 2 raised to the power 24, and in order to break that key, if we have a system that is able to guess 8 million keys per second, it takes only 2 seconds. And if we increase the length of key, it takes more time to crack the key by using brute force attack. Like here, if we have 128-bit key, like we have in AES, it takes these many years to crack the key. And if we have 512-bit key, it will take these many years to break the key. Now for block ciphers or symmetric encryption algorithm, the key length is around 256-bit. But when we are talking about public key encryption algorithm, minimum key length is 1024-bit or greater than that. So in public key cryptographic algorithm, encryption and decryption process is carried out using two different keys. So if public key is used for encryption, then private key will be used for decryption. If private key is used for encryption, then public key will be used for decryption. Why we call it asymmetric encryption algorithm? Because both parties are not equal. If sender is using a private key, then receiver will have to use a public key. Okay, so that's why we call it asymmetric algorithm or asymmetric cryptography. Public key cryptography or asymmetric cryptography is very new. It is there since 1970s, but symmetric encryption algorithms are there for thousands of years. So by invention of public key cryptographic algorithm, it doesn't mean that it replaces symmetric encryption algorithm, but it complements symmetric encryption algorithm. It does not replace it, but complement it. The biggest problem with symmetric encryption algorithm is key management or key distribution. How to distribute keys among parties before starting the communication. This problem has been solved by public key cryptography because we don't need to distribute keys secretly, because public keys are public, so we can make it public at any place, and other users can get access to it. So the problem of key distribution has been solved by public key cryptography. Public and private keys are mathematically related to each other, and from one key, it should be computationally infeasible to determine the other key. Like public keys are public, it is known to anybody, and even attacker has access to this public key. Attacker knows the public key, but still attacker should not be able to find the private key from this known public key. So it should be infeasible to determine private key from public key. Public key cryptography provides you both confidentiality as well as authentication service. Why public key cryptography is very famous? First thing is, it solved the problem of key distribution. The biggest issue with symmetric key crypto system was how to distribute keys among parties, and for this they need to rely on some third trusted party that we call key distribution center to get the proper key. So this problem is no more there in public key cryptography. So key distribution is easy. And the other thing is digital signature. We can perform digital signature using public key cryptography, which was not possible with symmetric key cryptography. As we know that when we are using public key cryptography, it uses two keys. One is called public key, other is called private key. Public key is known by anybody. It is used to encrypt message, and it is used to verify signatures. When we are using public key for digital signatures, then public key is used to verify signature, while the private key is used to sign the signature. Private key is for signature signing, and this sign can be verified by anybody who has access to the public key of the signer. So public key is for verification of signature and private key is for signing the signature. Private key is used to decrypt message. If public key is used to encrypt, then private key will be used to decrypt. And private key is only known to the recipient, not to all. Okay, public key is known to anybody, but private key only to the owner of that key. So each user have two keys with each other, one public and one private. Public key is public, is known by anybody, but private key is only known to the user himself. So it is user responsibility to keep his private key secret or store it secretly or securely somewhere.